The rain had become part of the diner's rhythm. It tapped against the windows in gentle, steady waves, like a metronome to the clinking of dishes, the scrape of cutlery, and the low hum of classic rock coming from the jukebox. Inside, warmth, swirled in the scent of grilled cheese and coffee. But outside, the world was gray, cold, forgotten. Callie Rohan glanced up from the ketchup-streaked plate she was clearing. There he was again. Same spot. Same hoodie gray ripped at the shoulder. Same thin arms crossed over a sunken chest. He stood across the street, under the awning of the abandoned bookstore, as if he belonged to the shadows. They watched, not the sky, not the traffic, just the food inside the diner. Callie swallowed hard and returned to her task. But her mind stayed on the boy. He had been there for 3 days now. Always at the same time late afternoon, just before dinner rush. He never begged, never spoke, just watched through the foggy glass as people ate. She had grown up with that look. The silent, hungry kind. The kind that hoped no one noticed your shame. Don't even think about it, came a sharp voice behind her. Callie turned. Her manager, Darla, leaned against the kitchen door frame, arms crossed, lips tight. I wasn't going to. Yes, you were. I've seen that bleeding heart look before. Last time you gave out free food, it came out of your tips. Remember, Callie? Offered a polite smile. He's just a kid. We're just a business, not a charity. Callie bit the inside of her cheek and nodded. Darla walked off, muttering something under her breath about emotional waitresses and lost profits. But the seed had already been planted. Callie waited until Darla disappeared into the walk-in freezer, then slipped into the kitchen. She looked around. A bowl of leftover mac and cheese sat untouched under the heat lamp, probably headed for the trash. She quickly filled a takeout container, added 2 buttered rolls. Her hands moved faster, driven by instinct. She snatched a green apple from the fruit bowl. Then, on second thought, she grabbed one of the homemade chocolate chip cookies she'd made that morning. She scribbled something small on the napkin and wrapped the cookie tightly, slipping out the back door. She pretended to take out the trash. The cold hit her skin like needles, but she ignored it. She walked around the corner to where the boy stood. He flinched when he saw her, his arms tightening across his chest. I'm not going to hurt you, she said softly. I just figured you could use something warm? She held out the bag of food. He looked at it, then at her. I don't have any money, he said. His voice was soft, but not broken. It carried a surprising weight for a child. I didn't. Ask for any, Callie replied with a smile. Just eat. No strings. He hesitated. Then slowly, carefully, he took the bag. Callie crouched slightly to meet his eyes. He looked about 12. His skin was pale under the grime, and his lips were chapped. But there was something in his eyes like he'd seen far more than any child ever should. What's your name? She asked. He paused, then whispered, Ezra. I'm Callie, gave the faintest nod. I hope, wherever you're going. It's better than standing in the rain. Ezra didn't reply. But before turning, he glanced at the napkin. A flicker of something moved across his face. Maybe surprise. Maybe gratitude. Callie returned inside before Darla noticed she was gone. She didn't tell anyone, didn't expect thanks. She'd done what her heart told her to do, and that was enough. The next day, Ezra didn't come, nor the day after. By the 3rd day, Callie found herself glancing at the window every few minutes. Each time, all she saw was gray pavement and strangers, rushing past with umbrellas. Her chest felt heavier than she cared to admit. Looking for someone? Darla asked sarcastically. Callie forced a smile. Nope, just watching the weather. But inside, she was wondering if Ezra had gotten sick. Worse, she wondered if she'd been too late. 1 week passed. Life at the diner returned to its usual rhythm. Callie worked double shifts, picked up groceries on her way home, and saved every spare dollar in a jar marked freedom. It was her dream to leave this place one day, to go to culinary school, to make more than tips and tired feet. was a quiet Thursday afternoon when the routine broke. A low rumble vibrated the glass of the diner. At first, Callie thought it was thunder, and outside the window, a black stretch limo glided up to the curb. It didn't belong here. Everyone turned to stare. The hum of conversation dropped. Even Darla peeked out from the kitchen. Who the hell drives that in this neighborhood? Someone muttered. The door of the limo opened. Out stepped a man in a custom-cut navy suit. He wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky, and everything about him, from his polished shoes to the subtle gold cufflinks, screamed wealth and power. Walked around to the other side of the car and opened the passenger door, and out stepped. Only he didn't look like Ezra. He wore clean jeans, a pressed blue jacket, and his hair was neatly combed. He looked healthier, stronger. His eyes still carried that deep, soulful weight. But now, they held something new. Joy caught in her throat. Ezra walked toward the diner, followed by the suited man as he stepped inside the bell. Above the door chimed. Callie dropped her tray. He looked up at her and smiled. Hi, Callie. Her voice faltered. Ezra. He nodded. Before she could react, the suited man extended a hand. You must be Callie Rowan, he said in a deep, confident voice. I'm Gino Valerio, and I believe you saved my son's life. Callie stood frozen, heart pounding in her chest. Everything was about to change. Callie's world tilted. Ezra, the starving boy in the torn hoodie who had quietly accepted a warm meal in the rain, was standing in front of her. Only now he looked like he belonged in a magazine ad. Hair trimmed, skin clean, his cheeks once sunken now had color. He looked like any 12-year-old boy should, except for his eyes. Those hadn't changed. Beside him, a tall man in the navy suit extended his hand again. I'm Gino Valerio, he said with calm authority. Ezra is my son. Callie blinked. Her eyes darted between the man and the boy. Wait, your son, Ezra smiled. It's true. Darla, watching from behind the counter, was frozen with a coffee pot in her hand. Gino gestured to a corner booth. May we sit? Still stunned, Callie nodded and led them to the booth where she had served that exact mac and cheese just a week before. The irony twisted in her chest like a knot. They sat. Ezra's hands rested on the table, relaxed, comfortable. Callie, meanwhile, clutched her order pad like a lifeline. I don't understand, she said finally. He was alone, hungry, cold. Gino looked at his son with soft, guilt-ridden eyes. Ezra ran away 7 weeks ago. After his mother, my ex-wife, passed, things became complicated. I was traveling, constantly working. Ezra thought. I didn't care. Ezra looked down. I didn't want to be part of his world. The suits, the meetings, the headlines. I wanted to disappear. Callie's heart ached. You were grieving. He nodded. I ended up here. Thought maybe I could just get by, hide in the cracks. But then, Gino added gently, you found someone who saw you. Callie's brows furrowed. Me, Ezra, reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a slightly crumpled napkin. Her breath caught. It was the one she had, wrapped around the cookie. In faded black ink were the words. She had scribbled without thinking. Whatever you're going through, the world still has kind people. Don't give up. Callie, he laid it on the table like a treasure. When Leo Dad's driver finally found me, Ezra said, this napkin was in my coat pocket. The only clue. Gino leaned forward. We traced the name to this diner and ran facial recognition from nearby traffic cameras. The rest is what brought us here. Callie shook her head in disbelief. All I did was give him some food. No, Gino said firmly. You gave him hope. Leo, the driver, appeared beside them. With 2 cups of coffee, he kept that napkin like it was gold, he said. Said you were the first person to look at him like he mattered. Callie felt tears sting her eyes. I didn't think it was anything special, she whispered. Gino smiled. And that's exactly why it was. He reached into a sleek leather folder and pulled out an envelope. He slid it across the table toward her. What is this? A thank you, he said. Open it later. But it's not just money. I want to offer you a position. Callie blinked. A position? You said you're a waitress, Gino said. But from what I see, you're much more than that. I own a chain of luxury resorts and properties. We need people who understand real hospitality, real heart. People who don't just serve food, but serve humanity. Callie's heart raced. You're offering me a job? Not just a job, Gino said. A career, a new life. Director of guest experience at one of our coastal resorts. It'll start with training, of course, but I'll pay for everything. Callie's mouth opened, but no words came out. A week ago, she was counting coins in a jar labeled freedom. Now, a billionaire was offering her a ticket out. But why me? She asked. Still trying to process, Ezra reached across the table and touched her hand, because when no one else saw me, you did. The room around them had faded into silence. Other customers had stopped pretending not to listen. Darla leaned forward over the counter like a soap opera fan catching the final. Seeing eye. I don't know what to say, Callie whispered. Say you'll think about it, Gino said, standing. I'll think about it, she replied, voice cracking. He handed her a business card. Call when you're ready. No rush. But I hope we work together. Ezra smiled up at her. I hope so too. Callie couldn't stop staring as they turned to leave. The same boy she had fed in the rain now climbed into a limo. Out. Waving out the tinted window. That night, Callie didn't sleep. She sat at her small kitchen table, the unopened envelope in front of her. Her hands trembled as she finally tore it open. Inside, she found a $50,000 check made out to her name, a printed offer letter for a full-time role with training, relocation benefits, and health insurance. A handwritten note from Gino. Kindness. Isn't cheap. It's priceless. This is the least I can do to repay what you gave my son. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stared at the check, the offer, the chance. She looked around her one-bedroom apartment, the chipped counters, the broken stove burner, the coat hanging by the door she'd mended 3 times, the tip jar. Full of quarters, she was done waiting for life to change. Tomorrow, she'd call. Tomorrow, she'd say yes. 1 year later. The sun dipped into the ocean like liquid fire, casting gold across the pristine white sands of Valerio Shores Resort. A hidden gem perched along the California coastline. Waves crashed softly, like applause echoing into the evening. Callie Rowan stood on the balcony of the Ocean View Suite, her navy blazer fluttering slightly in the salty breeze. Her gold-plated name badge gleamed in the light. Callie Rowan. Director of guest experience, she still wore the same quiet smile, but everything else about her had changed. Gone were the tired eyes from late-night diner shifts. Gone was the aching hunger for a life she could never quite reach. Now her eyes sparkled with purpose. Her stride was confident, her voice respected. Inside the suite, a luxury welcome basket waited meticulously arranged by her team, every detail checked twice. Every guest treated like royalty, because Callie knew what it felt like to be forgotten, overlooked, hungry, and now. She made sure no one who came through her doors ever felt that way. Her phone buzzed, text from Leo Knox, we've landed. Be there. In 30, her smile widened. Downstairs, the lobby glowed with warm lighting and soft music. Staff buzzed with polite professionalism. Guests sipped cocktails beneath palm trees while children laughed at the edge of the infinity pool. Callie walked the perimeter, checking in with her team, straightening a pillow here, smoothing a tablecloth there. Details mattered. Guests noticed. Care. She'd learned that from her grandmother before she'd lost her to illness at 16. And before the world had started getting hard, as she passed the front entrance, automatic doors opened with a hush. A sleek black limo rolled. Up the cobbled drive, for a second time folded in on itself. 1 year ago, that limo had parked outside a diner on Elm Street and rewritten her entire life. Now, it was part of her world. The driver stepped out first, Leo, ever sharp in his charcoal gray suit. He tipped his hat with a grin. Ms. Rowan. She returned it with a playful smirk. Mr. Knox. Then came Gino Valerio, in sunglasses and linen, looking less like a billionaire today and more like a dad on vacation. and finally bounding out with a backpack slung over his shoulder. "Hallie." She laughed and caught him in a warm hug. "Whoa, slow down there, mister. You grew again. I'm 5'3" now," he beamed. "I'd better start standing on a stool." Gino chuckled, pulling Callie into a gentle hug. "You running the place better than I ever could?" Callie shrugged. "Just following your lead." "No," he said. "You passed my lead a long time ago." They walked together through the resort, past the lobby, down to the private beach cabana she'd prepared just for them. A table with chilled drinks and Ezra's favorite cheeseburgers and curly fries was already waiting. Ezra ran ahead and flopped into a chair, kicking his shoes off. Leo sat nearby with a newspaper, sunglasses hiding his eyes but not his grin. Gino turned to Callie as they walked slowly behind. "I'm proud of you. You've built something beautiful." Callie gazed out at the sunset. "I just took what you gave me and tried to make it mean something." "But I didn't give you anything you didn't already have," Gino said. "You were always meant for more. The diner just didn't know how to hold someone like you." She looked down, smiling through misty eyes. "I still think about that night sometimes. The mac and cheese, the cookie, that napkin you saved." "My son's life with a bowl of leftovers and a note," Gino said. "I've made billion-dollar deals, but nothing I've ever done compares to that moment." They stood in silence for a while, watching Ezra chase seagulls barefoot in the surf. Later, that night the moon hung low, casting silver across the ocean. Callie sat alone by the fire pit outside her suite. Ezra had fallen asleep in one of the hammocks, a book on his chest. Gino and Leo were upstairs, probably reviewing plans for Gino's next expansion. She sipped tea slowly, remembering how many times had she cried behind that diner counter, wondering if life would ever shift. How many tips had she counted, praying they'd stretch to rent and groceries? How often had she looked out the window and thought, "Is this it?" And then one starving boy appeared. One decision, one act of kindness, everything had changed. She reached into her leather planner and pulled out a small, worn napkin, creased and faded, but still legible. "Whatever you're going through, the world still has kind people. Don't give up." Callie Ezra had returned the napkin to her the day she moved into the resort. "I don't need it anymore," he said. "But someone else might." She now kept it with her, always not as a reminder of what she gave, but of what she almost missed, because she had nearly looked away, nearly listened to Darla, nearly chosen silence over action, and if she had, Ezra might still be alone. She might still be behind that counter, tired and unseen. Callie leaned back in the chair and smiled. The world was still messy, unfair, unpredictable, but kindness, her kindness had ripple effects. Kindness had power. Kindness came back sometimes wearing a clean jacket and stepping out of a black limo.